Dr. Ben Carson said it the best. Islam simply is not compatible with our Constitution. It doesn't jive with our Christian morality, and it definitely doesn't fall in line with our Western sensibilities of freedom and liberty. And Bill Maher is going to call this out in a tremendous fashion over on his show. But before we get to these clips, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on this video so we can break through the algorithms. Here we go.
A new rule: if you're out protesting for a couple of hours wearing this, you have to go all the way and spend an afternoon running errands wearing one of these. You can't side with the people who ruthlessly oppress women without at least getting a taste of what you're supporting. I thought it might be a good time to say this. I actually admire your youthful idealism, and our world would be poorer without it. Much like your parents who just wasted 300 grand on that ignorance factory you call a college. Not that I think it's your fault being this poorly educated and morally confused. That takes a village. Shitty schools, overindulgent parents, social media, that priest who rubbed lotion on you. But 3 cheers to you for at least having the impulse to seek a cause in something bigger than yourself. It's just that the one you picked, you missed the boat by a mile. But here's the good news. You want a cause? Because I totally got one for you. Apartheid. Yeah, apartheid, the thing you've been shouting about with Israel for months. Never mind that Israeli Arabs are actually full citizens. You learned that word from a 2 Chainz song and discovered that protesting South Africa's apartheid in the 80s was a righteous cause, and so it was. So naturally, when you heard that Israel was an apartheid state, it gave you such a boner, you literally pitched a tent. You knew how wrong it was when tens of millions of South Africans had been treated like second-class citizens just because of their race. But here's the thing. Today, right now, hundreds of millions of women are treated worse than second-class citizens. When you mandate that one category of human beings don't even have the right to show their face, that's apartheid. And it goes on in a lot of countries. For the last couple of years, women in Iran have been saying, take this hijab and shove it. Because in 2022, a young woman named Mahsa Amini was arrested for wearing her mandatory hijab incorrectly and then died in police custody. And now security forces have killed over 500 people protesting her death and this obvious human rights violation. How about defunding those police? Amnesty International says that Iranian authorities are waging a war on women that subjects them to constant surveillance, beatings, sexual violence, and detention. What P. Diddy calls a hotel stay. In Iran, Me Too isn't a movement. It's what a woman says when another woman says, my life sucks. Yasmin Mohammed is a human rights activist who got married off to a Muslim man with fundamentalist views about women, not exactly uncommon in the Muslim world. He forced her to wear the niqab all the time, including once beating her because she took her hijab off at home because the apartment had a window through which people might see in. And this was in Vancouver. Here's what Yasmin said about veiling. It just suppresses your humanity entirely. It's like a portable sensory deprivation chamber, and you are no longer connected to humanity. You can't see properly. You can't hear properly. You can't speak properly. People can't see you. You can only see them. Just little things, passing people on the street and just making eye contact and smiling, that's gone. You're no longer part of this world, and so you very quickly just shrivel up into nothing under there. And that's my answer when someone says Islamophobe. Really, feminists? Come on. I know 1619 was bad, but this is happening right now, right under your nose rings. And it's not just the clothes. 15 countries in the Middle East, including Gaza, have laws that require women to obey their husbands. Laws, not just Harrison Butker's opinion. And those societies also have guardianship laws, which means a woman needs permission from her husband to work, to travel, to leave the house, to go to school, to get medical attention. Nothing? Honor killings, where women are murdered by their own fathers and/or brothers, happen so frequently they can't even have an accurate account of how many. In 59 countries, there are no laws against sexual harassment in the workplace, and many have no laws against domestic violence or spousal rape. 20 countries have marry your rapist laws. Multiple societies have laws about what jobs women can and can't do. Make a Barbie movie about that. 30 countries practice female genital mutilation, and 650 million women alive today were married as children. Kids, if you really want to change the world and not just tie up Monday morning traffic, this is the apartheid that desperately needs your attention, gender apartheid. This is what should be the social justice issue of your time. How about from the river to the sea, every woman shall be free? But in reality, it's not an issue at all, for one reason. The people who are doing it aren't white. I hate to have to be the one to break it to you kids, but non-white people can do bad things too.
So the irony that Bill Maher is pointing out here is thick enough to cut through with a knife, because you have all of these young protesters out there fighting fascism and inequality, and they're ignoring one of the biggest human rights scandals in history, which of course is how women are treated under Islam. Okay, what happened to all the feminists? What happened to equal rights? Oh, all of those arguments fall by the wayside when you're talking about minority communities, even though by sheer numbers, Muslims are anything but. Okay, but let's go ahead and run down the list of what happens when we have mass immigration, whether legal or illegal, from these third world crappy countries in the Middle East into our nation. Well, what actually happens? Oh, over here, you're going to see that, yes, you actually have the liberals being betrayed by the very people they fought to get into this country. And I remember reporting on this story months ago, and I found it quite hilarious, because you had the Muslim majority city council in Hamtramck, Michigan, actually voting to get rid of all LGBTQ plus paraphernalia, flags, etc. in that city. And of course, liberals were very upset. What happened to our Western sensibilities? All right, guess what? It doesn't exist in this particular culture. Now, does it? So even though this was hilarious to me because you have leftists getting their comeuppance, it's actually quite a serious matter. And it leads to other things as well, because as you can see over here in Dearborn, Michigan, you actually have the Muslim call to prayer being blasted 5 times a day from loudspeakers in defiance of city noise ordinances. All right, but they're of course allowed to do it because they're Muslim. Then of course you have in Texas, where they had to outlaw Sharia law because you had roving gangs of Muslim patrols going into stores and saying, hey, how about you stop selling alcohol and pork, because it of course is not halal. But heaven forbid, in fact, we try to live our lives the way that we see fit. And then, of course, you also have the fact that we have to adhere to their belief systems and not them to ours.
Look at this kuffar. Everybody's on Ramadan.
I know, I actually feel bad for eating.
And this guy's,
I'm going to have to put this away, ain't I?
this guy's stuffing his face. This guy he just sat here stuffing his face.
So here you have a man in England eating food in the break room during lunch, but it just happens to be during Ramadan when the Muslims are fasting. And of course, he gets shamed into stop eating because, of course, the smell would just be too enticing for someone observing their own religious practices. So as I said at the very beginning, right, Islam is not compatible with our Constitution. However, according to our Constitution, people can worship however they want. But what we're seeing over and over again is the Islamists coming in and forcing those around them to adhere to their way of life and their belief systems. All right. And this is exactly why we cannot allow mass migration of any kind. You have to limit numbers over a long period of time so people can move into this country and assimilate into our American culture, which embraces liberty and freedom, because otherwise you get what's happening basically in Dearborn, Michigan, and in New York City, where we have people going out and campaigning specifically in foreign languages, right? Does that sound like a melting pot to you? Because it sure doesn't to me. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and say hi to your mom for me. Do you like t-shirts? Of course you do. And now you can support the channel by buying an Angry Teacher t-shirt designed by me, Angry Teacher. So if you like America, if you like freedom, if you like liberty, then go ahead and click the link in the description, where all designs, of course, are 100% mother approved. So enjoy yourself and find something you like today.